Atlantic and Cape May counties, which started in 1987. And one of the reasons you joined was primarily because at the time the rates were very unstable in the private market. So the GIFs formed to try to stabilize those rates. And some of the highlights, just to kind of let you guys know what a great decision it was to join the Joint Insurance Fund at that time. The assessment that you are charged to be a member of that Joint Insurance Fund, where all the risk is shared amongst all the other municipalities, since the time that you joined this Joint Insurance Fund, your annualized assessment has decreased 2.99%. Now, there's not a whole lot of costs over the years that have decreased, but your Joint Insurance Fund is one of them. With all the exposure increases and stuff that the borough has gone through, that's very significant. Secondly, joining the Joint Insurance Fund was a very financially solvent decision because the Joint Insurance Funds now have a lot of surplus. The private market, when you paid insurance premiums to Travelers or you paid insurance premiums to, St. Paul or CNA, any of the big insurance companies, any profit that they made stayed with that insurance company, which is fine. I'm a public sector guy. I get it. Or a private sector guy. They make plenty of money. They're entitled to it. But in the municipal sector, we're dealing with taxpayers' money, so that profit that the GIF makes now is surplus that the GIF has. What happens with that is once there's enough surplus that they feel comfortable that they can keep their assessments level, they start returning that in the way of dividends to the municipalities. And Stone Harbor has received over $227,000 in dividends over the years that they've been members. So it's a great system. It's a solvent system. It keeps your assessments stable. We still monitor traditional market for you. Joe Miola, every January when your GIF application renews, he'll look at standard markets and say, should we even consider going back out? The problems with the standard market nowadays is that the coverage, we'd have to decrease coverage and we'd probably see an increased cost. So at the current time, it's really not an option for us, but we do look on an annual basis. Future assessments, I think Stone Harbor's in a great spot. The GIF looks at people that are joining the GIF and saying, well, are they paying more in claims for that member, or are they paying less for claims than the average members? And if you pay in $100,000, are we taking out $200,000 in claims? And all those factors go in. I can tell you that Stone Harbor is a great member for the Joint Insurance Fund. The average loss ratio for the last 6 years has been 39.2%. So 39% of your assessment that you pay in goes to pay claims, and that's one of the reasons your assessment's been going down. Not comparative exactly to your loss ratio, but there's other expenses that the GIF has that go into that. But the overall loss ratio of all members of the GIF is 72%. So you're at 39. So the borough should be commended. That's a really good loss ratio. I'm going to skip a few here and take this time, I think, to thank the Safety Committee. The members are listed on the bottom of the second to last page here, all the members of the Safety Committee. And you have a nice big Safety Committee here. So there's always plenty of people to discuss things at the meetings. And I just wanted to point out who was on the committee and what a great job they do. We have numerous instances where people have brought stuff to the committee. I know Rocky in Public Works has brought a couple things where he'll come in. It's just Rocky, right? Is it Rocco or Rocky?
Rocky.
There he is. Okay. All right. Good. And he's brought a couple things, Joe's told me, to the committee where it could be a tripping hazard, or where tents where we had some type of market, and those things bring to the Safety Committee, and then the Safety Committee adjusts it, recommends things to change next year, and we make our events safer, not just for our employees, but for the citizens and the visitors of Stone Harbor. So the Safety Committee is very functional. It's an integral part of our involvement with Stone Harbor. And I can say that the GIF really rates members on lost time accidents with workers' compensation. So if you have an accident where you just cut your finger, you're right back to work, that's a medical only claim. But if you break your leg and you're out of work for 6 weeks, it's a more serious claim. So they really look at those ratios. And the GIF overall average is for every, I think it's 100,000 hours worked, or maybe it's 10,000 hours worked, but there's some kind of ratio that the GIF average is 1.54, and yours is 0.92. So all your averages here at Stone Harbor are below that, and I think it's really a testament to the work that the safety committee does. And specifically, I'd like to recognize Grant Russ, your safety coordinator, who does an absolutely fantastic job. Grant's been doing that for quite a while now, and your fund commissioner, James Kraft, he does a great job. So you have a lot of great people doing it. You were recognized at the JIF Safety Breakfast and received an award there as well. So we feel confident that the decision the borough made to join the JIF was a very good decision, and we are very proud and happy to be your risk management consultant, and we appreciate the opportunity to be your risk management consultant again this year. So if there's any questions, I'm just about finished.
I just want to say thank you again to Grant Russ. He's in charge of this, and he carries the ball and makes sure
Yep.
that everybody does what they're supposed to do. Is there anything, Mr. Byrne, that you think we specifically should work on? Any areas that you think I know we have a great record, but there's always room for improvement.
I'm going to turn to my compatriot here, Mr. Miola, who really knows where the rubber meets the road.
Recently, last couple of years, your recreation department has become much more active and has working more closely with me on events and things of that nature. Just continue, doing that. More of the contractual type things when you're doing construction projects and things of that nature. Sharing, letting me review certificates of insurance prior to getting involved in certain things. That I think is more important. A lot of times we forget that, oh, we bid it, we did it, we gave the job, but we didn't take the next step. More closely monitor those types of things. I see construction going on outside. I realize I didn't review anything yet.
Oh, interesting.
But little things like that, we get busy and, it's so easy to forget. But it's just, you guys are doing a great job. You got great people here.
Wonderful.
Incredible.
Yes,
I like working with everybody and look forward to continuing.
thank you.
I have a question, Tom.
Yeah.
In layman's terms,
Yep.
the 39.2%,
Yep.
the net giver in quotes, could you
Yep.
just explain what that means?
Yeah. Basically, Stone Harbor's assessment is 400,000, let's say. I think it's in that ballpark. So you guys pay 400,000 to the JIF every year. That money obviously goes into a pot with all the other municipalities, and they start paying claims. So when somebody trips in Sea Isle, they might be liable for amount of money, they pay that. And the JIF's really good at handling claims. They have claims committees, they have attorneys, they have defense panels, and they're very frugal with their money, and they understand it's taxpayers' money. So what the 39% means is that out of your 400,000, you're paying about $160,000, about 40% of that 400,000 out in claims.
Now, there's certain fixed costs that we buy traditional insurance, excess insurance, expenses, things of that nature that absorb. A normal insurance company would be 30 cents on a dollar. We're operating around 12, 13 cents on a dollar. So, it's not all that money, is left over, but a good portion of it. And that keeps accumulating a surplus. And it'll come back to the membership proportionately to your share.
Does that hopefully answer your question, or I could elaborate maybe?
And
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
the excess is why you had mentioned, because that disparity between 400,000 and what you said, approximately 39% ratio of
Right.
160,000, because there's such a disparity there, that is why our premiums are perhaps declining, and perhaps we're getting a dividend, in essence, on that excess that sits in the fund and earns interest, so to speak.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it does sit in the fund, it does gain interest. You do get a share based on how profitable you are, and obviously Stone Harbor gets a nice share. But like Joe said, there's insurance
Sure.
costs. The
There's
39%
fixed
is
costs,
is the pure loss ratio. They also buy, like the JIF insures the first 250,000 of every liability loss. Over that, they might go out and buy some type of reinsurance, whether it's from the excess liability fund or from a standard insurance company. So there's other costs in addition to that. So it's not like, you know, it's not like 60% of your premium goes right to the fund for surplus. It's some percentage of that.
Interest also, because it's government, we cannot invest in anything other than.
Right.
public. So you're dealing with pennies.
Yeah.
Now, things are starting to increase a little bit, you know, so it was 0.25%, now we might be getting 1.25%. So things are improving on the interest side. Nothing like years ago.
Sure. And that loss ratio is an average based on how many years?
6 years.
6 years, okay.
And you've had years where you were in 10.
Right.
So.
This is an average.
You've had
Yeah.
your time with some sizable claims over time, and if I, you know, went back, you were a net taker at certain points. And that's why they use the 6 year.
Mhm.
Typical insurance company looks at the past 3 years, where it could, you really inflate on it. But no, it's nice looking at it that way.
So does your loss ratio dictate your dividends?
No, the dividend is
No.
the overall group, the overall fund.
Yeah.
So the profitability of the fund overall.
Yep. I think what they try to do is balance the stability of being in a group, yet the individuality of having your own assessment. The surplus goes out directly to how much you pay in. So if there was a town that paid twice as much as you, they'd give twice as much dividend to that town. Whether they were profitable or not, it would all be the same.
They also recognize that some towns, if they don't get their acts together, they do penalize so that they don't, that doesn't affect everybody. So let's say that a community is having a problem with employment issue in the police department or something like that, and you continually read, oh, you know, that town just went to another police chief and another one, and there are all these lawsuits. It's not gonna affect. They put what
Excuse
they
me.
call a retrospective program on those towns that have issues. So it doesn't affect everybody as a whole.
Anybody else? Jill, anything? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Byrne.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Lane, A&F.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Jill for her reports by the department personnel. And then later on, we'll come back to our discussion item.
Okay, tax collector, please.
Greetings. Well, it was a very interesting month of December in the tax office. We had an inordinate amount of phone calls from residents, accountants, financial advisors, and fellow municipalities. I did not know it at the time, but I had become an income tax specialist, a CPA, and a financial advisor, all in the month of December. And that was because of the president's tax reform bill. So everyone wanted to pay their first half, and numerous residents paid a guesstimated second half. In terms of dollars, in 2017, the prepaid taxes collected was $3,342,508. In 2016, the prepaid taxes was $800,964.42. So that's a difference of 2.5+ million, or 318% increase. We did good. $500,000 of those collections is for third and fourth, and we don't even have a tax rate yet for that. So I made it very clear when residents were calling me and asking me, will I accept prepayments? I said, absolutely, but I will not refund. So we won't be doing any refunds for prepayments, including those residents who understood at the time, who were escrowing their taxes and signed up for direct debit. So the direct debit area is really easy because if there are $0 due, then $0 is withdrawn. So it'll just kick in again when there is an amount due. The escrow residents, they have to take that up with their mortgage company, because they were told, you know, you sign an agreement to escrow, and now you're prepaying. That's not going to be my problem. So we won't be refunding, hopefully, at all. We also had a record increase in FedEx and UPS deliveries when that grace period was extended to the 23rd with the postmark. So it was a very busy, very crazy, very interesting December in the tax office. Great learning experience. And as far as utilities, we had in 2018, 46 leaks since January 1st. In 2017, the total leaks we had for the year was 36, and in 2016, the total leaks for that year was 46. So in 1 month, we've already met our quota of emergency turnoffs, and of course, that was due to the snow and the weather. Regarding the snow and the weather, that delayed our meter readings, which is delaying our billing. So you will get your utility bills, I promise. They're just going to be late, okay? Does anyone have any questions?
Anybody questions for Deb? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the tax assessor.
Good afternoon. Well, it's coming to an end. We're getting ready to wrap this up. They're going to update the file on Tuesday, and all the new assessments will be in effect. You can call up till Friday afternoon for an informal interview if you still have questions about your assessment. The old net value of the borough was $4,474,980,700. The new value is $4,838,376,000 even. It's a total increase approximately of 7.51%, and a total gain in ratables of $363,395,000. The interviews went pretty well. I didn't really notice any extremely angry people. Are any of you guys angry? We had, in Borough Hall, we had 104 interviews. Over the phone, we had 10. And walk-ins, we had over the phone 118. Walk-ins were 10.
Did Vital conduct those interviews, or did
Yes.
you? Or
I mean, I did a
okay.
couple if somebody, came to my office or whatever, but Vital basically did those. And Judy, I know you didn't get your letter. I do have them sending all the returned mail for residents. Like, they had the ones for the condo mother lots, but I'm not going to have them. I don't need that. So anyway, I just want you to know, if yours isn't
I
in
never
the-
received one.
if yours isn't in that envelope, then it was lost in the mail and not returned to Vital either, so.
Okay.
Okay, so overall, you know how I always said a third were supposed to go up, a third were supposed to go down, and a third were supposed to stay the same? Not so. 2,248 line items increased, 972 decreased, and 232 stayed the same. Okay, so we're going to update the file on Tuesday. We're going to print the book on Wednesday, and then everybody will be getting their postcards at the end of next week. So that's about it.
So it's that 70% increased?
Uh,
70, 80%?
Well, what's 3150 divided by 2248? Come on, Jim.
Meanwhile, Margaret, can you
Okay.
tell us why the decrease in the 700 and some you said?
Most of that was probably condos that were still way out of line with what the market provided. You know, from 2008, we hadn't done any kind of adjustment unless they filed an appeal. So, I had side-by-side condos on 2nd Avenue that were assessed at like 1.1 million that we're selling for 750. So I think that was a big part of the decrease, not really single family.
So all those years, we've reaped a good benefit from that.
Yeah, so we'll see how many appeals we get. And that will basically tell the story of how well Vital has done.
Wow. Questions, concerns, issues?
I just got my letter, so maybe yours is,
You just got it?
last
I
week.
I got 3 if anyone wants one.
No, even with, I thought that my mail was held when I was away. I came back and expected it to be in, it was not there, never, I still have yet to receive anything.
All right, well,
So it made me concerned. I said, I wonder how many other people have not received anything.
Interesting.
I only really heard from people basically in Florida that hadn't received it. I mean, I had a couple here and there, but the mail was being returned to Vital rather than coming to me, so I didn't really have any, know how much was coming back. He said there were only about, maybe a dozen and a half, 18, 20.
Yeah.
So, so a lot of people asking about the tax rate.
Has yet to be established.
Yes. So I just tell them, it's a budget issue, and, I mean, do you have any, you want me to say something to them when they call? Any suggestions?
We'll be discussing that in a little bit.
Okay. I'll tell them to come to the council meeting.
How about that?
We'll
Okay.
let you know.
Pardon me?
We'll let you know.
Okay. All right, so does anybody have any questions? We're good?
I think we're good. Yes, thank
All
you,
right,
Margaret.
thank you.
Do you have something, Josie?
When the book is printed. Okay. Not until the book is printed. Gotcha. And that number is still tweakable until Monday. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, construction and zoning. Tag team.
Good afternoon. As you're all aware, Mr. Miola was talking about the police station is well underway. We've got the Reeds project underway. Footing and foundation are issued for the Reeds. Those construction details came back in, and there's just a few little revisions. Same with the police station. A couple little revisions went out to the engineers for that one. Stone Harbor Pizza, same thing. The foot and foundation was issued for that, and that construction plans just came in, so we have to review those for accuracy for construction. Across the street from Stone Harbor Pizza, Mr. Gracie received the zoning board approval to add 2 residential units above the kayak shop. We have not received plans for that yet, but that'll be coming. The Regatta Bay down on 3rd and 98th. Mr. Smith just received this week the corrections to what he was waiting on the engineering. The plans that had come in did not match the resolution for that project, so they took care of discrepancies and sent them back to the engineer for that project. And finally, from zoning, I've been working with Paul Cates and Jill with Mott Associates. We're working on the presentation to the planning board for our floodplain ordinance. As you recall, in November work session, we discussed that the new mapping became effective in October. And then along with the new mapping, we had redone our floodplain ordinance, which became effective October 13th. And in that January and December and January work sessions, I was telling you about a log jam in my office because there were a couple little things that needed to be tweaked on the floodplain ordinance. So we've got 3 proposals going to the planning board come next Monday afternoon. One would be to retain the current ordinance. Number 2 would be to put the 9-foot back in that we had lost when we redid our last ordinance, to put the 9-foot minimum back in. And that's where the 2 little problems came in within it. Not right now, if you're in an X zone, there are no height restrictions because zoning goes from base flood elevation. And if you don't have a base flood elevation, if someone were to come into our office with plans, we would be
We have no way to
Stuck.
gauge the +2
Right.
feet for the flood ordinance for that. That's where it comes, if you're in an X zone, we have nowhere to start.
And so the final possible thing was, just to simplify the whole process, is do an 11-foot to the top of block, island-wide. And it would simplify it from the design phase all the way through to completion for everybody. But we'll be presenting that to the planning board this come Monday. That's all I have. Any questions on any of that? Okay.
Just to comment on that, the 11-foot to top of block proposal would make things, to add to what Ray said, make it a lot easier as far as design construction. We wouldn't have any slip-ups as far as what zone they're in because we have so many zones in town. And this would simplify it to get it to be at the top of block, and then the height of the structure would go from top of block from there. It takes all the screw-ups out of the whole thing with trying to figure out, 2 foot above whatever zone we have, and especially the one where we don't have anything in the X zones. So I just want to strongly suggest that we try to we look at that one to simplify the whole process. And it'll make it easier for the design professionals also, especially in our office.
Mike, that's the model that Sea Isle has right now?
Yes, Sea Isle adopted that, and it took all the guesswork out of everything that had to do with flood. And it's simplified it enough to where there's no question as far as where these houses need to be height-wise. I think
Makes sense.
it does, it really does. We've had, some issues with some of the zones, the 8 and 9 zones, and I think the biggest thing that we had a problem with was the underside of the floors for these homes. You can't exceed in our ordinance, which is 6 feet from grade to the underside of the floor. But we do have situations where that raises, code-wise, if we're going to have homes that are in a zone where they have access to the second floor or the first floor, that ceiling in that area that accesses the first floor has to be at least 7 feet, which is 84 inches. If we leave it at, the current situation, you wouldn't be able to fit these accessible means of egress for that first floor if we can't go any higher than 6 foot in local ordinance. So if we can get that height to be where we need it to be, it wipes out everything as far as the question on how these places are supposed to be built. So I think that's probably our best bet, is to try to adopt the 11-foot to top of block, and it'll have to change the zoning ordinance with the underside of the first floor. That being said, we have, there were 3 new homes last month in January. That went down a little bit because we saw an influx of homes, new home permits in December. So that tapered off a little bit. Only 2 demos, 27 building inspections by me personally, as opposed to 62 in December. So everything they're in the middle of the construction process right now, so it did slow down a little bit in that respect. A total of about 67 inspections, or 67 permits total, which would be building, plumbing, electric, and fire. 6 dumpsters were issued last month, which was down from the previous month also because of the how many homes that we saw come in compared to the month prior to that, as far as the new home permits. And that's not all I have.
Michael, that 11-foot top of block, what does that do, if anything, to the overall height of the structure?
It'll change it. It will change it.
One of the things that we'll have at the planning board is a schematic design of how it affects town-wide, the 3 different scenarios. So we'll be able to put that into perspective when we're discussing it.
So
How
have
it's
that
going to affect the
visual.
different heights.
So we'll have different height structures in different zones. Is that,
It may change
Depending
it by about a foot, maybe a little over a foot, somewhere around there. It depends where it is in town.
At that point, it's really a function of where grade is.
Correct.
So from,
Right.
yes, the heights will vary greatly depending on where the grade is. If everyone's at 11, if you strike a line across the island, everyone's at the same level, 11. But if grade is down much further over here versus over here, the height that you perceive from grade will be much different.
Yeah.
What Paul Mott is doing, our planning engineer, he's actually drawing that up in pictures.
Okay.
So we can really present it, so you can see exactly what it's going to be at the next planning board meeting. All 3 of the suggestions are going to be on a picture with a grade and showing all the homes where they will be throughout the island. He's doing a really nice job on it, and we should have that ready for the planning board meeting.
So
Good.
this will exceed the height that's in our ordinance as we speak now?
Not
Of the height of what is allowed to be built now?
For the height of the structure.
Yes, the
only
height
for
of the
certain
structure.
zones. There are
I'm
some
sorry?
zones- There are some zones that require it right now along the bay where, like Mike was saying, where you already have to have a 9-foot zone plus 2 is 11, and you're on the base side of what they call the lineal line. The structures already have to be that height per CAFRA laws. When CAFRA gives a permit, they come in and it says, this structure has to be this high to the bottom of the framing, to the bottom of the lowest horizontal member. So some zones, we already have to be this high. We're just trying to make it fair or uniform across the island to make it easier.
If it's in a coastal A zone or a V zone, they're already going to be higher than what the typical home would be built at.
Yes.
In what our ordinance reads as we speak.
Yes.
So then the ordinance has to be changed to increase the height of what the building could be, the structure. Is that correct?
That would probably come into play, yes, depending on where it is. There's a difference of probably about 7 foot, Mark, maybe from end of island, one end of the island to the other,
You're
as far as
probably,
grade is concerned.
you're probably at 4 on the bay side.
And then all the way up
10.
to about 10 or 11.
Yeah, it could be 5 to
south side.
7 feet, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The net effect is not much will change
No,
with this. This is just gonna allow simplicity in construction and design, that everyone's at 11, we know we're safe, we comply with FEMA and CAFRA when we know we're going top of block 11, and we go up from there 31 feet.
right. Another big seller with this change would be in the CRS program that we're in now. If we're Class 5 right now, and it'll more than likely give us some more points if we get a higher standard for design and construction in town. So it'll help us with the CRS program with trying to gain points to get a better rating.
It'll take us to that 3.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully. Yeah, a little closer.
Okay.
There's some other bigger things that have to come into play too, but that's all I have.
Anybody got anything?
And we will be, once it goes to the planning board, then we will be bringing it back to full council too, but we're starting at that level, exploring it, and then obviously it has to come to council for any formal changes.
So the planning board's this coming Monday.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Anybody else?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Borough Engineer.
Thank you. Under the category of grants, I have an update on one item for the borough, and that is the Cape May County Open Space Program is once again accepting applications for park and recreation development. The application deadline for the first round of funding this year is April 16th, and we are available to meet with the borough to discuss a potential application at your convenience. Regarding the borough's capital improvement projects that I'm currently working on, we've been asked to develop the 95th Street bathroom renovation project, and we are providing a more detailed discussion and presentation at the next part of the meeting today. Lastly, we have 2 general engineering projects to report on. We are investigating the available options for the Marina Boat Ramp floodgate. Options that we are considering are manual floodgates, automated floodgates, and an idea that I think might work, which is actually reconfiguring the ramp to raise the ramp elevationally, which would be, in my opinion, the more superior alternative.
So the ramp becomes the gate?
The landward side of the ramp, I believe we can get up higher to provide almost, lack of a better term, embanking it, getting it up more.
Okay.
So we would have to transition back into the parking lot, so we would, again, investigatory phase, raising portions of the parking lot, raising the ramp, and then transitioning the ramp back down, probably at a steeper grade. All needs to be investigated, but it's a thought process that I think would be the best thing if we could do it.
Interesting.
And that's come from visual observation and also talking to some other municipalities who have installed the floodgate, then threw the floodgate away, didn't like bringing it back and using it because of the manual labor involved in it, and they just said, the heck with it, we're going to raise it as high as we can, and we're going to be protected to a different degree of storm. but I would like to do an analysis on that before I really run out there with that, but it's an option. It's an option.
Are we looking, we're looking to get that done this year? I
For
hope.
what?
We're looking to complete that this year,
That's the goal,
right?
yes.
Okay, last general item is South Jersey Gas has mobilized to the borough 2 weeks ago to complete what's called the Grid 2 Main Renewal Project, and they will be continuously working until mid-May. We're going to professionally and aggressively suggest to them that when they go to pave half of a roadway, if they kind of meander into the other half, we're going to try to get them to buy the whole road. So that's a work in progress, and we're going to try to get that accomplished as much as possible.
We did that in Public Works, though, because we discussed that here before, that one side is like really black and one side is gray. We've never had that before. So if they could do the side they're doing the infrastructure on, and then move over and just do a skim coat, you would call it, on top?
Well, what I would like to try to accomplish is if they open the other half of the gray part of the road, we're going to suggest to them aggressively to repave the whole road.
So it
We'll see how
all
we fare, but we're going to attempt to do it.
Conforms, that we don't have all these patches and different colors, and back to what we originally had many, many years ago.
We're going to make them an offer they can't refuse.
And they'll be gone by May?
Mid-May is the targeted, stated, scheduled completion date by the gas company.
I think that's very important that they're out of here for the summer.
And that's not completely done, though, in May? Then they come back again in September?
No.
And then they're done?
If they can, I guess, coordinate with all the homeowners, get all the hookups they want to be done, the Grid 2 project and leave, and then they have another project that's called Southstone Harbor that their street opening just came into my office, which is another large project to start in September. So Grid 2 would be done, in theory, completed mid-May, and then Southstone Harbor would start in fall.
South Egg Harbor is one that they did not disclose to us prior. We knew about the Phase 1 and the Phase 2. This is something that came in last week
Oh, wow,
that were, yeah, and
okay.
do you remember the streets?
Paradise?
It starts down at Paradise, it works its way up, it hopscotches the second, yeah, it's, their official title is the Southstone Harbor Project.
The end of Paradise, and up to 118th Street to 200 and 100 blocks.
It's a nice size project.
Have we looked at Paradise for paving for the future? Is that on the list? Because I think that's the original road. Yeah, it's been there a while.
And
But
that,
if we can dig it all at once. No, I mean, whatever they're digging, they're going to do.
They're looking to start that in the fall, right?
yeah, they stated that they want to have a pre-construction meeting sometime summertime, midsummer. They would start right after Labor Day, and they said they would go to mid-December. Okay, that is my report.
It is, it's the oldest road in Stoneham.
Okay, CFO, have anything at this point, other than budget?
Budget, well, the state this year started they're switching us away from a paper-based reporting of the AFS, the annual debt statement, and the budget to an online system called the FAST system. But the FAST system is anything but fast, because every time you go to enter something, there's this delay, and it's making it a very slow process. So hopefully next year, once all this data's in, it'll be a little quicker, but other than that, everything is moving along.
So it's half-fast.
It's half-fast.
Half-fast.
Sometimes it's so slow that I lose track of where I'm at. I start daydreaming for something. It's horrible.
Borough Clerk.
I'm going to read the cash report. In current fund, cash receipts, $3,274,561.99. And the disbursements for the month, $766,054.64. In the water and utility, the cash receipts, $455,720.06. And the disbursements, $401,517.32. The Borough Clerk's Office, the total taken in this month, $85,418.20. We're busy with the boat slips and the trailer slips right now. They're all coming in. In the Construction Office, the total taken in for the month, $54,122.
Any questions for clerk? No? Planning Board report, we have not met this year. We were canceled due to the snowstorm, our January meeting, and our next meeting is scheduled for the 12th, as Ray and Mike were explaining what we'll be discussing on the 12th. Any questions for Planning Board? Anything more from A&F?
Not at the moment, later.
Not at the moment. Okay. Okay, moving on, Public Works.
Grant, if you'll be our guest.
Be our guest, be our guest, be our guest.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody received their reports, Public Works
Yes.
reports?
Mhm.
For January of 2018. Just a few things that are not on there that are either have been completed or underway that I thought were of importance. 83rd Street ADA ramp to the beach will undergo rebuild in the next month or two. The surface railings and stairways will be replaced. We're trying to get DEP and Coastal Engineering to agree with a design change on that ramp because of the constant accumulation of sand during storms. And we want to try to make that a little bit wider and more accessible for the patrons. Fabrication of a sample steel gate for the vehicle crossovers is being built as we speak and should be ready within the week. We're gonna put it up at 111th Street to start, so you'll have a chance to look at that. I don't think anything's gonna get through it once you see it. It's a pretty hefty piece of steel. The Streets Department has been working on patching all the roads that have been disturbed from the water leaks and the patch or the lateral work that the utilities crews have been doing. Grounds crews, I don't know if you noticed, but we've tightened up some of the large trees on the borough properties. They've been trimmed back because of the load weight, especially during the snowstorms. We lost quite a few of the pine tree limbs, so they've been working on trimming them back. Grounds crews also working on the Bird Sanctuary Shell Path on 3rd Avenue. There's a lot of breaches underneath the shell path. We're not sure if it's naturally happening or if it's from burrowing from animals, but there's quite a bit of work that has to be done there to shore that up. They also cleaned out the channel on the Salt Marsh side to allow better flow to get back into the 2nd Avenue side of the bird sanctuary. They're also working on shoring up the slope along the 3rd Avenue side where the discharge pipe that allows the salt water tides to come into the bird sanctuary and then discharge back out. We're seeing a lot of heavy erosion on that, so they're working on shoring that up. The Buildings Department is working on changing out all the lighting at Public Works from fluorescents to LEDs fixtures in an effort to reduce the amount of electric we use there. Right now, I'm not sure exactly how much our bill is at Public Works, but it's the smallest out of all the buildings in the borough. And we're trying to get it to a point where we have a zero balance on our billings for that building. And then we're going to progress into the other buildings here and the firehouse, hopefully the rec building as well, because they're the main buildings that are used all the time. You should come down and look at it. It's amazing changeover from the fluorescent lights and the amount of glare and shadow that it casts before that we put in the LEDs. My office right now is empty because we're renovating it, putting in new carpet and changing things around a little bit. But the lighting, there's no glare whatsoever in the room. But it's very bright in the room, which is amazing. You should come down and look at it if you get a chance. But we're planning on moving from one building to the next within the next couple of years. What else? Yeah, they're also working on moving a door for us. We're putting in a counter space for those, the plumbers and contractors that come in to drop off and ask for help. Right now, they come up to a window, which is about this big. And we're going to put a counter in so they can actually come into our office space and actually interact with our supervisors and the office staff. So it looks like we have folding tables and whatnot we're working off of, and it's just one big hollow room right now. So hopefully we can get that back together before the summer. I'm hoping. Solid waste is still on the winter schedule, Thursdays and Fridays. They're helping out on the other departments. Automotive is doing their routine maintenance and services on all the borough vehicles. The utilities. Utilities department has experienced a large number of breaks in our water system. To date, and Deborah mentioned what we had in December, but we've had 10 lateral breaks between the main, which is our responsibility, and the meter. We've had 31 lateral breaks between the meter and the house, 14 cracked meters because there's not enough flow going through the system into the homes. So the water sits inside the meter, and because of the low temperatures we've had over the last 2 months, we've had 14 cracked meters that we had to replace. In our own system, we've had 4 water main breaks, one at 107, one at 104, one at 93rd Street, actually 2 on 93rd Street, one on 2nd Avenue, and then one down near Smugglers. As Deborah also stole my thunder, the quarterly meter report reads have been slow due to the amount of snowfall we had right at the time we were supposed to be reading meters and all the freeze-ups that we had. So that's my report.
I just want to add to that bulk trash is March the 12th. So put it on your calendar, and that's our first bulk trash.
It's called litter abatement.
Litter
It's called-
abatement now, we're not
Consider-
allowed to call it.
Oh,
Just-
it's not
Bulk
trash
trash.
Just to touch on that, we constantly get calls from homeowners about picking up large sofas and chairs and whatnot. And the reason we don't do that is because our yard does not have the capacity to fill up dumpsters and to separate and maintain that until they're full and then take them out. But we also have to understand that we had 41 trips for the bulk abatement on the 4 different pickups that we had here in town during the year. And it was a savings of over $14,000 with those bulk pickups. If we were to pick up from people whenever they call and we put it in our yard, and we have to get rid of it because we only have 4 or 5 dumpsters that we need for other usages, we would be spending that $14,000 in getting rid of that bulk or that abatement. So that's one of the reasons, that's the biggest reason why we have these 4 bulk trash pickups, as we call them, and not a constant pickup whenever the residents call us.
Does Lisa tell them when they call to take it down to the county?
We instruct them to take them either to the transfer station or to the Woodbine.
And what happens if you tag them? If it's left out at the curb, which I've numerous times.
Yes, we do a
they
courtesy.
Plop it on the curb, you tag it.
We'll tag it, we'll give them all the information. When they contact us, we explain what the ordinances are and the reasons why we can't pick it up. So, if they do it again, that's when we send the police out. Violations. So, we don't get a whole lot of that, but we do have to educate, and that's why we we warned them the first time.
Thank you.
Anybody got
questions?
questions for Grant?
Yeah, how many vehicle access points to the beach? Again, 4?
No. 7, 6, 7?
So we're looking at putting these gates on all 7 naturally, but
Yes.
you think, you seem confident that this steel gate will do the trick, so.
Yeah.
Right, so we're looking at that for this
Trust me.
year or before summer,
I know,
I
the-
assume, to get it
We're
completed?
getting them,
Yes.
we have all the
Okay.
materials, we're just, as we can get
Oh,
them.
are you fabricating them? You're-
Yeah,
we're-
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
thought
I
you
have
had-
welders and
Oh, I see.
fabricators in our
Public
shop.
Works is making them, yes. 111.
We're gonna do 111th first. We're gonna put it up, let everybody see it, get the approvals from the chief,
That's great.
and then we'll move on from there.
When do you think that'll be available for viewing up there?
Weather permitting, we should have it up there within a week or so.
Oh, okay.
We'll let you know.
It's quick.
But it's laying on the floor in the auto shop right now. That's our biggest area where we can do any kind of fabrication of that size, but it's quite large. And it will stop anything that tries to get through, so, yeah, including trash trucks and large vehicles. So, if you want to come down and look at it, Chief, it's there. All right?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Grant.
Anything else, Joan?
No, I'm
No.
good, thank you.
Utilities?
We had a utilities meeting last week, and the only item worthy of really reporting is that we met with the Yacht Club to discuss their renovation that is supposed to, or slated to take place in the fall, starting in the fall, and completing by the summer of 2019. And they are more than willing to work with us and with Grant to make sure that the discharge that comes from the Yacht Club is, they take appropriate measures to make sure that the discharge is not detrimental to the borough. And we're going to work together with them. It was a good meeting, and look forward to working with them. I think they're very, they've been helpful in working with us.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Utilities, Public Works, back to A&F?
Each of you in your Dropbox has a estimated parking meter revenue sheet. In A&F, we discussed, and I know Mrs. Kramer had worked on this some years ago through Public Works, putting parking meters at 80th Street, on the south side of 80th Street, and then on First Avenue on the east and the west side from 80th to 83rd. The revenue generated from that would be approximately $31,000, which we would earmark strictly for beach replenishment. So in addition to the $50,000 that we are now putting away for beach replenishment, at no cost to the taxpayer, we would be able to put another approximately $30,000 a year into that fund. So we have parking meters at so many other areas. We would not include the little parking stall, the little parking area on the Second Avenue side. That we would like to see a sign. We've worked with Miranda, and we would indicate that parking is there for the recreation use only by permit. And she would be in charge of working with the police department and coming up with some type of a permit that would allow people who were using the facilities for various programs, they would have a time-stamped permit to lay on their windshield, so that it wouldn't be carried over day to day to day. It would be, as they use it, they could have a permit to park there. There's about 35 stalls in there.
I'll just, as Karen said, we worked on this in Public Works for I don't know how many years, 3 or 4 years. So I don't want to be devil's advocate, but I'm going to tell you the reasons why it wasn't done. And then everybody can have a discussion and figure out for yourselves why. First of all, they thought it was objectionable to put them there with the playground to charge either our permanent residents or our tourists to go to the playground or to play any sports on that particular field. That was one objection. The other objection was from the homeowners on the 81st Street and a little beyond, or even beyond, that they felt the overflow that people wouldn't want to pay for parking would go into their neighborhood. Now, they wouldn't have any room to park their cars other than their driveway, and their guests and whomever else wanted to go to the beach could not park there. They'd have to park further down, further down, further down. That was another objection. I think basically, if I remember correctly, they were the two main ones. Other than that, the revenue, and Karen has already put that in, is $31,000. We'd have to find out from Grant how much each. It would be a kiosk, correct? A kiosk?
Yeah.
How much that would cost, to put in there. The other third thing, and I don't know even if I should, I'm going to mention it anyway, was goodwill with Avalon. There's a huge restaurant there that certainly objected to it, but they're on the 80th Street side. They're not in Stone Harbor. And we found that a lot of the employees, that was one of the reasons we wanted it, were parking there and not leaving space for our tourists or our homeowners. So it's, as Karen is in charge of this, she's open for discussion. I just want to put that forward so that you know that you have that information, that will come up again with whomever. So now you can discuss it and see how that could be changed or however your feelings are.
Well, your statement that the restaurant employees park there, that's an entity that pays no taxes in Stone Harbor. And when our tourists and our people want to use those parking spaces, they can't. They can't because someone else is there. We have parking meters around 96th Street at the basketball tennis courts, the playground. There's parking meters there. There's parking meters on the beach parking lots. We haven't differentiated there. This almost seems a no-brainer that we would put this at this area because it's a gigantic used area on a lot by an area that is not bringing revenue into Stone Harbor.
And I'd just like to say that I agree with what Karen's saying, and I understand, Joan, what you're saying. To someone who rides around every day of the summer season to ride through our town and see where we do have cars more often, the 80th Street side of our property around the recreation field is not people that are going to recreate. It is the neighborhoods flowing over, the people parking there, whether they be employees, whether they be the condos that are in that area. So the people that we think we want there really are not able to use it. The common sense of it would be the people park at the beach on 96th Street and pay for parking. It's not expensive. I don't think our parking fees are expensive, and with the kiosks, it makes it much easier to do. I think it's something that that we really honestly need to realize that it is, I think it's time. It's been time for a long time. It is not fair for us in good faith to expect to continue to have a parking area for anybody but the people that want to come to Stone Harbor, and they can't park there. It's used, the small parking lot that Karen's talking about is, there's cars parked in that overnight, every night in the summertime. It has people in it, so if people are coming to do recreation, they're not parking there. If it's a recreation that we don't know about. I know that we have wonderful programs at the recreation field, and that boot camp starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. Our meters start at 10, so it's not going to affect those, but we also have 60 or 100 bicyclists that seem to find their way to the recreation area. I don't see that as as the challenge that we think that the people parked around the recreation field or in front of the playground are all people that are using a recreation field. And, you know.
I'm not disagreeing
Yeah,
with you
I
at
know.
all. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was in favor of it forever.
Yeah.
So I'm just want to put the information out.
No, it's good.
Before somebody else comes forward and says, did you think about this? Did
Yeah,
you think
you
about
have.
this? So now we're
Yeah.
thinking about it, and we have both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I'm looking in the audience and I see a lot of people who live within 5 blocks of 96th Street, one way or the other. And I'm sure they will agree with us. Just as the man who came to us at a council meeting about a year ago, telling us that he lived in the condos on 99th and
9th
2nd
Street.
Avenue. And he didn't like those meters next to his house because he said there's no parking because everybody from 96th Street who works there or parks on his street. It's the same thing, and we're 5 blocks away. We're at 101st. We know all the employees from the Reeds because they park right down our street. And I think it's just the cost of doing business during the season. If you want to live here in Stone Harbor or in any resort area, you're just going to have to give up your parking spaces to the people who work downtown and who shop downtown. And I think it's always going to be a problem. But I look at, if we compare the business that's on 80th Street that we're not naming, and we have the 96th Street similar business on the corner of 96th and 3rd, all of their patrons have to use meters. So I think we have to be fair in that regard. And while I do understand the expense of erecting kiosks, that's a one-time job. We will continue to collect $31,000 in meter fees every year so that we could use that for beach replenishment. So I understand that you're just giving us the
Information.
right, but I'm just telling you that when we discussed it in A&F, most of those issues did come up, and those pros continue to outweigh the cons.
I'm very, very reluctant to do anything that would not force, but promote people parking in the neighborhoods. And I think this is a case where that would happen. I think you'll have people who use those spots, whether they work at I'll name it, the Windrift, or whatever. They're going to go out now and park on 83rd Street, 84th Street. They're going to go in neighborhoods. You know, Mantua, you see it, as you just mentioned a moment ago. Charles and I see it on 99th Street. You know, that's just a fact of life. That's what's going to happen. So I'm very reluctant, for the sake of $31,000, to inconvenience those people on those 3 or 4 blocks in that area. I think there's a reason why we don't have meters there now. And I think if we go back in time, that's why we don't have meters there now. Because of the Windrift clientele and workers parking in the neighborhoods. And the clientele coming out at late hours and doing whatever they do in the state that they're in. I know I wouldn't want it going on the street that I live on, or my summer house is on. And I just don't think $31,000 is worth inconveniencing all those people.
Well, we have a very large parking lot that is underused at the marina. And if the people can't walk 3 blocks, if they want a non-metered lot to work for their 8-hour shift,
And we
It's
run
not
a
that they
jitney.
can't walk, it's that
We run
they
a
won't.
jitney in the summertime.
Right.
For
But it-
people who want to drink.
right,
But
They
I,
know they can't drive if they drink, so the jitney runs.
but the reality of it is that it's not that people or employees can't or don't have the opportunity to take the jitney, it's just that they won't. And so when there's free parking a block and a half away in front of someone's house, that's where they're gonna go, because it's easy, it's convenient, it's the easiest next convenient step. And so, okay, there's a meter across the street, I'm just gonna park a block that way and be in front of so-and-so's house. I'll weigh in on this. I agree with Ray, and I think what Mantura, what you see is exactly the reason we don't want to do this. I feel bad that the people in your neighborhood and around you have to deal with that, and we do see it down 99th Street. It comes around the corner, and these people are avoiding the meters, and that's exactly what we're going to create here, is that same exact setup, but now down there. So now the same phenomenon will take place in the 200 block of, 80th to 85th Street, and those people suffer the consequences. Beyond that, I think at some level, we have an obligation, and I don't even know if it's a legal obligation, but an obligation to allow that open space, that great open space we have there, to be more accessible to the public and to kids, and not put up any barrier, albeit small, in the sense of a parking fee. It's still a barrier to people accessing that park, the playground, and it might turn a few people off, say, you know what, I don't want to go down there and use that because I'm going to have to find a space and pay for a meter. And so I think on some level, I don't know if there is any legal barrier, this is a question for Mark, with open space money, if we received any for that park. Do we have?
Well,
We did receive open space funds for the
Hang on
tennis
for a minute,
courts
Charles.
and,
So what you're saying is that you are in favor of the people that are coming down there now and stopping everyone from parking because they are parking there from 8 o'clock in the morning till
No.
8 o'clock at night. The people that
not-
you're talking
no.
about aren't getting spaces.
No,
They
what I-
don't even
what I'm-
have the
What I'm in
chance.
favor of is not creating a problem like we
No.
already see in town here.
Well,
That's
can
what
you
I'm in
tell
favor
me how I can alleviate that problem in front of my house? I'm in the beach block, and I can't park in front of my house. So
just
Right.
part of
there's
living
no
here.
meters there that's
Yeah.
driving people away.
Yeah, it's just part of living here.
There's-
It's not logical.
I would have, living in the business district myself, I would have to agree that as soon as those meters go up, it pushes into the residential areas, no doubt. So the residential areas that are going to be roughly what the 200, or the 100 block of 83rd, and into the 200 blocks of 80th, 81st, 82nd, 83rd, they already are experiencing difficulty with parking, and it's going to definitely increase people parking there. And as far as way back in the day, one of the things that was really trying to be avoided was people coming out of the Windrift and picking up their cars in front of somebody's residence at 84th Street at 3 o'clock in the morning after they're just got done cashing out. They're not necessarily drunk, but they're walking down the street talking to their friend when 3 o'clock in the morning can be loud. And all that was being pushed into the residential areas. And that was when, back in the day, when the Windrift was really, there was a lot of people that would spill into the residential areas. And it was a problem, and people really were unhappy about it. And I agree that I think it's going to push people into the residential areas, and that same problems are going to come up. You see it really big in the 300 block of 95th Street, and those folks are constantly saying they could use some relief with parking, and people get pushed right into that. Everybody's parking there. So and that begins, keep in mind too, our meters are running, what, May 1st to October 1st?
Mm-hmm.
And and it begins right away. I do also, just in my opinion, the recreation area, the tennis courts at 96th Street are more within our business district and zoned in a business. It's a zoned business. And it's always been my understanding that our meters are for a turnover so patrons can access people's businesses and not as a revenue generator. It's more as something to help the businesses be able to have someone not park in front of their business for 5 and 6 hours. So there's a turnover. That's been always the way that I view the meters, and not so much as a revenue generator as to make sure our business district continues to be fluid.
And again, that was one of the huge objections back when we brought it up. To address Josie, we're saying to walk down to the marina. I don't think a young girl that's 19 or 20 that is serving at the Windrift is going at 2 o'clock in the morning to walk down to the marina by herself. It's really not safe. Not that it's not, that it's dangerous, it's not safe for a young girl to be doing that. She'll walk outside, but she's not going to walk that 3 blocks.
I'm going to disagree with you there, Joe.
Well, you can,
It's
but I
safe,
would.
it is certainly safe, I would say it's safe, but however,
Well,
I
I
think
would
perhaps
not
you
let
should say
my
she may
dog
be
walk.
reluctant.
We-
I
she
think-
And
would be
perhaps it might be a
reluctant.
little bit of poor risk
Reluctant.
management, but I don't think there's much to
But how
fear.
about
have a
the same
question.
girl leaves the Reeds?
I think
Well, the
Charles,
Reeds has a parking lot that they park all their patrons in.
Yeah,
And we're already
on a
hearing
daily
about people
basis.
because of the reeds.
I think Charles' example is correct. They're going to park in the first vacant spot they see.
That's true.
what-
That they don't have to pay for.
What
Yeah,
is an
they're not-
employer's
so-
responsibility? One of the
And
reasons.
I think, I think also, and then I won't say any more about this, because you know how I feel about it now, I guess, but we can't, we don't want to fall into the trap, you know, okay, the wind drift is in Avalon, yes it is. The wind drift is also an asset to Stone Harbor, whether it's in Stone Harbor or not. A lot of people here go to the wind drift, a lot of summer people go to the wind drift, so, you know, the situation is
And
what it
valet
is.
your
I think-
car.
I think it all comes down to, are we going to drive more vehicles into the private neighborhoods up there? And the answer is, yeah, we are going to drive more in there, and I just,
I think to a
Don't wanna do
point, but
that.
we have the caliber of people here that are not going to quibble about paying for a parking meter. And why can't the employer, one of the reasons we have parking meters downtown is so the employees will not park in front of the stores. Otherwise, as they're doing now, the employees park in front of the stores and the customers can't get there.
No one's disagreeing
So
with
doesn't
you.
the employer have some kind of a responsibility? You, Mrs. Kramer, tried to do this a number of years ago and have the different hotels in town be able to valet their cars to the marina. There were designated spots over there. And I don't know whatever happened to that.
It didn't work.
But-
They wouldn't do it. The wind drift wouldn't do it.
Well, maybe if there's some pressure put on it, it's not just the Windruff, but the Reeds, they can valet their cars there. Right now, they're valeting into our little parking place.
Well, they have their
And-
own parking lot. They valet to their own parking lot.
The Reeds.
The Reeds.
Partially.
Yes.
But some of the other places do not. And I don't want to mention businesses by name. I don't think we should do that. But.
Well, we started
the oth-
not to do that.
I know.
And there shouldn't be any
We
overnight
started off-
parking at that parking lot at 80th and 2nd. I don't think it's permitted from 2 AM to 5 AM, overnight
there.
parking.
They're
So there shouldn't be anybody there, so they're getting ticketed if they're there, because you can't be there overnight. There shouldn't be anybody parking there overnight.
Meters is no overnight parking.
But when the rec center shuts down at 5 o'clock, there's always cars in that lot. So who's parking there?
I park there. I do park there if I go to the wind drift.
Yeah, and there's condos there, I mean, the overflow could be, there's the Golden Shores is there, there's a lot of,
Well, and you're also saying that, okay, people downtown that want to go to a bar or to a restaurant or even shop pay for their parking. They don't usually try to ride around and they will see a spot, they'll pull in. I don't think anybody has not ever not shopped in Stone Harbor because there's a parking meter. Why would that be any different down there?
just in my
mean-
opinion, there's no shopping down there, so there's no need for an impetus to have a turnover of vehicles.
So we shouldn't provide convenience for those that want to pay and go to the beach or want to pay and go to a restaurant. I don't think that they're going to hesitate to pull that car in, put money in the meter, and go where they want to go. I don't think they're going to ride around the block like they might have 20 years ago. I think that the mentality has changed, and the police department would know that I know when you're talking about, because I remember that vividly. It was a disaster down there, and
Well, the
it has
places,
changed.
the
It has changed.
residential neighborhoods that are presently next to metered areas consistently come with complaints about parking once the meters come on. Consistently. 300 block of 95th Street. You know, the area, once you get beyond the parking meters at, 98th, 99th, and 3rd. All those residential neighborhoods, they can't find parking for themselves or for their guests the second that those meters come up. And this, we would be adding another area, would be facing that same hardship. And we're continually, people are coming to me and saying it is very difficult to park once those meters come up. And they're going to, it's beating a dead horse, but they're going to be pushed into those residential neighborhoods, undoubtedly. It's happening everywhere, it's what's going to happen.
It's difficult to park anywhere in this town.
I think,
For 3 months of the year.
I think your assessment's spot on, Josie. I think you're absolutely correct. No one will hesitate if you're pulling into the Windrift for dinner, drinks, whatever, you'll pay the meter. But what will happen is the employee that shows up for work prior to dinner time and stays there till, 1, 2 in the morning at closing time, the bartender, the waitress, the server, whatever, is gonna park in the neighborhood adjacent, and then they're gonna fire up their car when they get off work, and it's gonna be, whereas right now, you're right, they're probably finding a spot right there next to the park, and then when they come out, they get in their car, they're using up a space, which definitely could generate revenue. The question is, do we wanna shove that employee into one of our residences, one of our residential neighborhoods that is
I think your
directly adjacent?
beachgoers are too.
Yeah.
They're going to drop off their stuff, and then they're going to drive
and go
around
where
and
it's
find a
free.
free spot
Yeah.
rather than pay for the day.
Absolutely, you're right.
I think the bottom line here is that the reason that it's being offered as an alternative to be able to be a creative way to generate money is that beach replenishment is going to be an age-long process here in Stone Harbor. Every year, we're going to face that problem. So we either generate that $31,000 in meters, or we put it on the taxpayers. That's the bottom line.
Well, how
Or we
much?
find another way.
How much was the beach replenishment last year? The last project we did, how much was it?
150,000,
What did it
6
cost
million?
us?
wasn't it?
Yeah, we had to put, what, $1 million? We had to put over $1 million ourselves.
$1 million. So the 31,000 is, like I said, I just don't think it's worth the inconvenience in the neighborhood. I think if we had a real problem here we were trying to solve,
Right.
that would be one thing. But there doesn't seem to be a problem. It all seems to be about this $31,000. And
No, it's not just about that. It's about
well, what is it about?
letting the people that want to park at the beach get to the beach and put money in the meter so that they get themselves a spot, so that people aren't parking there from 7 o'clock in the morning until they go home for work, or I don't think we're providing parking for people to the beach. I mean, you can ride down there and see some, early in the morning, yes, you'll see people coming to go to the beach. But once those cars are moved, and they go home, it's not people going to the beach or to the playground.
When I look down there, Ray's right. I don't say, if you look at it generally speaking, I don't look at it and go, wow, what a disaster we have on our hands. What are we going to do about this? Is it ideal? No, nothing ever is really. But I think we're taking a step backwards if we put meters in down there. And you're creating a problem that, a new problem, instead of eliminating problem that we all think exists right now. It's called the.
Right, maybe that is a good way to look at it. One problem, would we trade it off for the other?
And I think also, if we're earmarking this money for beach replenishment, why are we doing it at the expense of some of our taxpayers? That's an expense which I think should be borne universally of everyone in this town. So yes, it should come from a general fund
Well,
from our
It's
taxes.
just like our other user fees that we have. That's all it is a user fee. Parking meters are user fees, to me. And I think the only people
I mean,
that
it
don't
can
like
go-
them are us.
That's
because we're not
secondary.
used to it.
It can go wherever.
And it is an
Put it,
athletic,
but-
it's athletic fields and playgrounds, and I think we don't have a consensus that is for sure. So I think it needs to go tabled for now, back to the drawing board. As I go around, I'm looking at your face as I go around, I'm seeing that we don't have a consensus to go forward with it, listening to everyone's opinions.
Everybody has said their opinion, and
Yep.
so everybody is against it.
No,
There's certain elements to it, like Charles said, I don't think it should be punitive against anyone. I think it needs more thought, I just thought.
and that's what I'm saying, it doesn't,
This just came up the first time this time, so.
first time this time.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
First time this time.
Yeah, first time this time.
So anybody else have anything last they want to say on that topic?
Yes, I think it'd be interesting to ask the police department their experiences at 80th Street during the summer. Have they changed in the last 10 years? Is it more calm? Is it still
Oh,
congested?
anybody, you could see that. It's way more calm. That you could see that
Well,
yourself.
And that's a good thing.
Right, yeah, you could see it's way more calm than it
Times
was,
have
what?
changed, as they do.
Anything else?
Not that I'm missing the point on that. What,
Way
you
back
implying?
when,
yeah,
many, many years ago, it was crazy down there, absolutely crazy. There's no doubt about it. It was every night, it was everywhere, and it has matured, let's put it that way. I think we have different people, thank goodness, coming to our community.
Right, right. But one of the major complaints was the fact that people were pushed into the residential neighborhoods, be they sober, be they drunk, be they whatever, they were pushed into those neighborhoods, parking there, walking up and down the street at all hours, so on and so forth. They were, you even have people coming in the morning to clean, so,
But you have the jitney now, too, which you didn't have before. And that's taken
true.
a lot of that away. That's why it's calmer. You have the jitney.
And plus, you can't drink and drive.
And people are really aware of that. People are very cautious.
They're very cautious about it, so that's why you don't hear all that hoopla, or not as much. I don't live.
okay? Anything else on the work session agenda? I don't see anything. Anybody have anything last from the agenda? We have a couple of minutes. So, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned?
You didn't have a second.
Second.
I heard one, no?
I thought I said, I thought